Hello and welcome to the third video of this tutorial series. In the last video, we created our application and learned how to navigate the app editor. In this video, we're going to create two forms, a project form for creating project records and a task form, and then we'll link the forms together so that we can create tasks for specific projects. So let's get started creating our first form. Go ahead and navigate to the form that was automatically created when you created our app. As you can see, the form is titled Task Management after the name of our app. Let's change that by clicking the little pencil icon next to the name. Great. Let's call this form Projects. Then just click the green check mark to save our title. Perfect. Now let's start designing our form. Click the design card to open the form editor. Great. Now this is the form editor. In the middle here we have our form, and on the left we have all of our design elements and our fields. Across the header you will see several different tabs for the form, and as you can see we're in the design tab right now. We'll explore some of these other tabs in later videos, but for now let's just design our form. Here in the middle we have a section, which every form starts with. You can add more sections using the section design element here. We're only going to need one for our form, so let's leave it as it is, but let's change the title of the section to Project. To do so, simply click directly on the section title and begin typing. There we go. Now we're going to keep this form very simple for the tutorial. I'm only going to need 5 fields. The first is a project title field, and we'll use a text field for that one. To bring a field onto your form, simply drag and drop it directly into the section. Now let's change the name of the field by clicking directly in the field where it says text field and typing project title. Next, we're going to add a project description field, and for that one we have a few options. We could go with another text field, but the text field is only a single line text field. The text area field is multi-line and would work better as a description field, but it doesn't have any formatting options. So let's go with our last option, the rich text field, which is both multi-line and allows for formatting. So go ahead and drag that field in below our title field and rename it to project description. Now we're going to add 2 date fields, but before we do that, let's bring in the 2-column design element and place it below our project description field. Great. Then let's drag in our 2 date fields and place one in each column. All right, the first one we'll call start date, and the second one we can name estimated completion date. Finally, let's add a project manager field. Let's drag in one more 2-column element and place it at the top of our form. Then on the left column, let's drag in our project title field. Then let's grab a user field and place it on the right and rename it to project manager. Good. This looks pretty good so far, but I want the project manager field to be a little smaller than the project title field. So let's hover our mouse over the 2-column element and select the little I properties icon. This opens up a right side properties panel where we can change the number of columns, and we can also change the column ratio. Let's go with the 75% to 25% option. Perfect. That looks much better, and that's all the fields we're going to need. Now the form is a little wider than it needs to be, so let's go into the form settings by navigating to the settings tab on the header bar. Here in the settings you can change the form name and description, disable translations, you can customize the record ID format. You may choose to make some fields unique, meaning the form cannot be saved if another record has an identical value in that field. What we're looking for is the form layout, which always starts as full, but let's go ahead and change ours to wide for a little bit of a cleaner look. All right, now let's navigate back to the designer and voila, that looks much neater. Now let's move on to our next form, the task form. Go ahead and click the Save and Close button on the far right of the header bar. And here we are back in the app editor. Let's use the New Form button on the left side navigation to create our new form. Right, we'll call this form Tasks. We don't need a description, and we'll be changing the roles later on, so go ahead and just click Create. Great. All right, as you can see, we're automatically sent to the form design editor for our new form. Let's change our section name to task. Great, and now let's get to designing. We're going to need 6 fields for this form, and let's start with a text field, and we'll call this one task title. Okay, then let's bring in a date field and rename it to due date. All right. We're also going to need to assign this task to someone, so let's grab a user field and rename it to assignee. You may also wish to use a multiple users field, which works similar to the user field but allows multiple users to be selected, but we're going to stick with the single user field for now. Okay, let's also add a text area field and rename it to task details. Great. Now, I want to add a comment field to allow a user to add comments when they complete a task. So let's grab a new section and drop it at the bottom of our form. We can rename this section to comments, and then let's grab another text area field and drag it into our new section, and let's name this field comments. Now, this is of course a little redundant, so let's go into the section properties by hovering over the section and selecting the little eye icon next to the trash can icon. Click that. Okay, and then let's tick the hide title and description toggle. Great, that's better. The last field we're going to need is a project field, which will allow us to choose which project this task belongs to. For that, we have a couple options. We could use a lookup fields field, which will allow us to look up data from another record and then display that data on our current form. This is useful if we want to read and add data from more than one field on the other record, but since we only need the project title here, we can use the list selection field. So let's go ahead and drag the list selection field onto our form at the top and rename it to project. Now we need to tell the field where to look for its list options. So let's open the field properties using the little eye icon, and then let's navigate to the options tab. This is where we choose or create the list selection options. As you can see, we could enter them manually, but that's not going to help us. Instead, tick on the lookup from another form toggle. Great. Now we're going to be looking up a record from this app, so we can leave that first option as is. The form we want to look up from is the projects form we created earlier, so let's select that. And finally, the field we want to read from is the project title field. The last thing we may want to do is turn on keep lookup values synced. That way, if the project title is edited on the original project record, it will also update on all task records that were created under that project. All right, now that's all the fields we're going to need, but this form is also a bit wide for my taste, so I'm going to go back into the settings and change the form layout to medium for a neater look. Great. All right, now let's save our progress. Now the last thing we're going to do is just quickly change the layout of the fields here so that it's a little bit easier to navigate and looks a little bit nicer. I'm going to grab a 3-column layout option and I'm going to drop it below our project. And in the first column, I'm going to grab our task title. The second one, I'll add our due date. And in the third one, I'll bring our assignee field. Great. Now that pretty much does it for our 2 forms. We are going to be coming back to the form design editor to explore some other options, add some things, and change some of the aesthetics, but that's for later videos. Let's go ahead and test out our forms really quick. So let's launch our form using the launch icon in the top right of the header bar. As you can see, our project field is blank when we click on it, so let's go ahead and create a test project record by navigating to the project form, which is currently titled Task Management in the navigation, which we'll be changing later. All right, here we are. Let's just fill out the project title with something generic. I'll put test project, and then let's submit. Now let's head back over to the task form, and voila. We can now see our project in the list selection field. So there we have it. We've created our forms and linked them together. In the next video, we're going to add workflow to both of our forms. We'll create a simple email to notify users that a task has been assigned to them. And we'll also create an automatic trigger to change our tasks to overdue when the due date has passed, and send an in-app notification to the assignee to alert them. See you then.